Roger, copy.
Awesome. Cool. Welcome to another MoonDAO Town Hall. Today we're joined by Bella. Bella is the founder of Space Debris DAO. When I first heard of, both Space Debris and DAO combined, I thought, I need to reach out to Bella and talk to her. Bella's been working on this, I think, for a year now, right? Is that correct? Or how long is,
I started really posting about space debris and DAOs like a year ago. And then now officially we're created the company and part of the ESA business incubator since a month now. So
yeah. So I guess, what really impressed me, I guess, is the momentum and how quickly you were able to gain support from ESA and buy-in from their accelerator program. It's really exciting. And I guess I'd love to learn more about you, how you started this idea, how it came together, and I guess also why a DAO? Why does it make sense to use a DAO? Of course, I'm already bought in, but I just want to hear your thoughts on that as well. So I guess maybe let's start with your background. How did you get into the world of space debris and DAOs, and what did that journey look like?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for the invitation to speak today, right? I'm happy to be here. And my journey into the space debris topic, it's not it wasn't a straight road, I would say. So I studied psychology and sociology in my bachelor's, and then I continued and quit a master's in international relations and peace and conflict research. I studied that for 2 years and quit when the legal think tank that I co-founded was already having a governmental client for a year, and I was basically full-time working with a startup I co-founded back then. And this client we had was a legislator from Abu Dhabi, and they wanted to have us train their legislators on various topics of the future. It was like blockchain technology, it was AI, and also space law, right? So lots of these quite new topics that are becoming more and more urgent for governments to prepare for. So I started space with a policy perspective, and I realized quite early that international regulation or international law is very fascinating on the one hand, and also very complex or complicated when you really want to enforce something, especially if it's so far away, like in space, where data availability and collaboration and data sharing and all these things are very difficult. But through this process of learning about space law, I actually, in the process of preparing these sessions, I went to Burning Man 2 years ago, where I actually learned about space debris in the first place. Because, if you know Burning Man, there's lots of workshops also happening on all sorts of special topics. And there was a guy, I think from MIT, who was presenting his work, and I think 4 other people or something, not a whole bunch of people interested in space junk back then. But one of them invited me to check out the Zero Debris Charter, and I did. So a few months later, after the burn, I went to the Netherlands, to the European Space Agency, and I had the honor and the option to actually contribute to the last workshop of finalizing the Zero Debris Charter. And then the charter was published. It got I think by now 175 signatures from states, from companies, from universities, I think as well, at least lots of space operators like OHB and Airbus. Also ESA itself signed the charter, of course. And it's a wonderful community, and I continued contributing to this community. So after the charter, we started to develop technical booklet that is basically outlining a technology roadmap, what kind of technologies are needed to actually achieve zero debris or to reduce space debris. And coming from this policy background, I realized, okay, until law catches up in a meaningful way, in a way that works, it may be a bit too late if the acceleration of space debris or also the launches continues as it does right now. So I started thinking about alternative ways to help achieve those zero debris goals. And I thought about incentives at first. So what can we do to, first of all, help educate and spread the knowledge on space sustainability? Because even in the space sector, it's still a niche topic, I'd say. But even it's growing a lot in demand, and people are recognizing its importance, but still it's quite early. And on the other hand, we wanted to see what would actually help operators financially to like become more sustainable, because that's always a question. Whatever sustainability topic you're talking on, it's always a question in the end. How much does it cost the companies to adjust? And then I started talking to insurance companies and to figure out if there's something we could do in a collaboration with them to see, okay, are they interested in rewarding more responsible companies with perhaps cheaper premiums if they would comply voluntarily with certain guidelines that go beyond the current law? And that's what we're currently working on, basically, besides building the community, because the community is still the key factor. They are developing the standards, they are exchanging their knowledge and experiences, and it's still, yeah, all basically in development, right? So we also host online events. We had like several experts from ESA, from insurance companies, from operators, presenting their perspectives and research on space debris. And we do a lot to keep that going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I guess when it comes to space debris, it does seem like a very difficult challenge from a legal point of view, because you're kind of operating in uncharted territory in some ways. It's like maybe almost like international waters, or you have many different organizations, private and public, that are operating in the same domain, and there's a tragedy of the commons when it comes to actually picking up after yourself. But it's amazing to see that, or to hear that there are so many companies and organizations that do recognize that this is a problem, that do want to do something about it. I'm curious, I guess, going back to the incentives around this. So how do you get a company to be incentivized to clean up after themselves? Is this so I guess is the DAO's role within governance, so kind of enforcement, or is it via incentives, so like setting up kind of a game theory problem where maybe you're rewarded for picking up after yourself? I'm curious how you've modeled that in your head.
So I have like two answers to this. Like, one is like the idea I have in my head or in our team so far, and then there's a part that we are still figuring out with the community together, right? Because when you're building a DAO, I mean, you know perhaps best that I can come up with a plan or idea what kind of incentive would work, but I can only propose it to the community and see what they respond to. So we thought about, okay, because also the concept of the DAO is quite new, we want to start with something more simple. Like, we don't want to launch a token right away. We don't want to even like make shared funding decisions right now, even though that's something in my mind. That's definitely one of the long-term visions that we have, that a DAO can allocate funding together to maybe fund R&D missions, like active debris removal missions, or development of new technologies that are needed for solving space debris, like new deorbit kits or something. There's lots of research being done, but especially the first in-orbit tests may be like requiring some funding that often just isn't available. But if there's a dedicated community that's committed to achieving zero debris, which we already have, right? So if in this community is like saying we also want to contribute funding to those kind of things, because it could be like even a shared IP in the end, right? Like, there are possibilities that I think are very interesting that we don't do now in the MVP, that we don't do focus on right now, but more on the long-term vision. What we do right now is basically proposing governance model, but not in the governance like punishment way that you kind of described, but more like in a making shared decisions way, in a way that, like, there's different working groups where you can make proposals as a group, for example, for new recommendations, for new standards, and then you can make votings together. And we want to also enable very diverse stakeholders to be part of the DAO. So we want to have different roles for different stakeholders, so that even a student can be part of the same DAO as maybe ESA is, but ESA, like a space agency, you may have a different role that may be able to participate in different votings than a student or something, right? So we want to have it inclusive, but still with like some kind of like soft hierarchy, so to say, so that different decisions can be made by different actors, but still you can involve a whole bigger community, and it's not just happening above people's head. So even if there's a person who has no space background whatsoever, space is still their shared frontier, right? So even though it's a high school student maybe, or like a person working in retail or whatever, you know, someone may still want to be interested in like being informed at least of what's happening to their shared like commons.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess at the moment the DAO operates in sort of like an international forum to gain feedback on the types of policies, the types of governance, the way, you know, get basically a substrate for all these organizations to figure out how to coordinate with one another so that you can get to that next step. It makes a lot of sense. I guess you know, today SpaceX has, you know, a ton of satellites, and how do you, so say there is a community of organizations that have agreed to some sort of contract or some obligation to clean up after themselves, but obviously this comes at some level of cost. You know, you have to make sure that whatever debris is being put out there, you have to pay for someone to go in and collect that debris. So in my mind, and this might not be true, but I'm just curious, those organizations might be at some level of a disadvantage because they have to put up with the cost of cleaning up after themselves, even though they're doing like the socially appropriate thing. But you know, and I'm not saying SpaceX wouldn't be a part of this, but say an organization like SpaceX that has a very large satellite constellation isn't a part of this, they don't have that extra cost. Do they have a competitive advantage being outside of it? I guess how do you solve this sort of that problem? How do you get everyone on board? Yeah.
So the problem, like not everyone participating, basically the whole climate change discussions, right? Like why should we save the emissions and when China does that, right? The good news here is it's quite an international problem. It's an everybody problem because in that way, like in climate change or something, you have this disproportional outcomes, right? Like the people contributing least to the problem, they usually are most vulnerable to the consequences. And that's a big problem. In space is like we want to continue using space. So every space actor has an interest in maintaining access to space open. And space debris is not selective in that way, right? So unless you have in the next 10 years, like I'm not speaking about tomorrow, right? But like assuming in 10 years or something, the situation is way worse with space debris. Unless you have like massive shields somehow that protect every part of the satellites, even like solar sails, or like every most vulnerable part, unless you have that, like it's going to be very difficult to say someone can afford to not invest in zero debris. And also cleaning up after themselves doesn't necessarily only mean like going up there and literally cleaning up space junk. It starts, and that's most important even, to stop releasing any new debris. So the cost we're speaking about is more about like now the design, like to redesign satellites in a way that they are compliant with zero debris recommendations. That means like being able to actually also share data, like being transparent on those things to help the space traffic coordination, to avoid collisions that can generate debris. That's like one of the most basic and important things. And I wouldn't say this is not even like a money problem. That's more like an information and disclosure and like trust issue problem. But then there's like other things, mostly actually in the prevention side. There are also a number of like, I think 40 to 50 or something very dangerous objects in space that kind of need to be removed. That's what the space industry agrees on. That would cost also millions of dollars. That's also part of the problem. But on the long term, the most effective thing that has to be done right now is basically prevent the release of new debris.
I see. So actually, I'd be curious to know what are the sort of ways that a satellite operator today could make sure that they're following best practices when it comes to space debris. So you said being transparent about the data, so saying releasing information about where their satellite is. I imagine like deorbit or some capability for deorbit. What else can satellite manufacturers or people operating constellations do to be responsible?
So there's lots of different standards. Also depends on what kind of spacecraft you're speaking about, if it's a rocket or a satellite, or even which orbit or what kind of satellite you're talking about, right? So we are currently actually working on some kind of list to see, okay, what is something like recommendations that we can also give out. There are also lots of those, right? There's like ISO standards that are commonly used in the space industry, like standardizations for reducing space debris and so on. And that get very technical, right? This gives you thresholds that you should not surpass and so on. Those is a great starting point. But they're also not exhaustive and also not really up to date, like a lot of them. So like there's like the whole debate between like this deorbiting rule, right? Like to reduce the 25 rule to the 5 rule, which is kind of like accepted in many communities now. But I would say like one thing I would definitely recommend if you are either planning to launch something or already operating something is also to join or to kind of contact the Zero Debris community, which is a global community by now. It was initiated by ESA, but it's not owned by ESA or not restricted to ESA member states. I think there is also Canadian space actors and from other countries, that I think from India last time as well. So we had like a growing community there for anyone who is not even compliant yet, but just interested in reducing or doing their part or learning from other operators and from space agencies. I think the Zero Debris community is one of the best starting points for operators or companies to connect with others who already have gathered experience, like practical experience, not just like theoretical documents.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another question that comes to mind is when we talk about access to space, regulatory burden, it can be very difficult, especially for small startups, that don't have an in-house legal team, or maybe they don't have enough in terms of funds to put up with all the paperwork, all of the regulations, and make sure that they're compliant with everything. How do we say and most companies, I think, do want to be compliant, especially with space debris. I think it's recognized as like, this is the right thing to do. But how do we make this process straightforward for startups, such that they don't have to go through a heavy regulatory burden? How do there's always that balance, right? Yeah.
I mean, the regulatory burden also depends on the launching state you're working on, right? So that really is only so much in the control of other actors than the government, because if you want to launch with a certain state, like there are certain requirements you have to fulfill there, and that varies across legislations. In general, I mean, I've been also attending lots of conferences where emerging space actors played a key role. And that's not just companies, right? That's even states. That's like also like states that are just developing their space capabilities, right? Or just recently the African Space Agency that was also established. So there's like emerging space actors, and for them, of course, like they are now in the process of developing all the things that other states like the US or China or Russia still has been working on for many more years, more established process and so on. But if we talk specifically about the companies, that's also something that we are interested in. I mean, we are focused mainly on LEO operators, which is more like new space. It's more like newer companies, not the like traditional geospatial big satellites, but more like small LEO constellations, for instance. And for them, we are also interested in collaborating with them to make this process easier, especially when it comes to zero debris compliance and so on. And also the purpose of the DAO or community is also to help especially those actors to make their lives easier. And for this also, we are interested always to hear from them, right? So if there's any operator out there, you hear from someone, I'm also very happy always to talk with them and to see what are their burdens, and if there's something that we can also do with our organization, with the DAO, on the long term to help solve those problems with them, especially when it comes to sustainable operations.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, I think with space debris, it really is one of these challenges where a DAO seems to me to make a lot of sense, because you need to interface with many different organizations and companies from different parts of the world that need to have some sort of common standard or some sort of way of interfacing and working with one another, and being on the EVM or something that's universally accessible makes a lot of sense. And then on top of that, it is one of these challenges that does require like an order of magnitude larger scale of collaboration. So having the governance and having the ability to like create this sort of almost like collective intelligence between all these different organizations makes a lot of sense. I wonder. So something that I've heard that I'm wondering if you guys are potentially incorporating into the DAO is almost like a bounty model on space debris, where people can essentially help fund the like a bounty on like collecting debris, and then any other organization can go in and pick up that piece of debris. I'm curious if you've explored that idea, or if does that, like on first pass it seems like maybe that makes sense, but I'm curious if there's any issues with that, or yeah.
I think it does make sense. It's a bit like a grant program almost, right? Like where you say this community, especially the debris community, could say, hey, there's a need for this like development, like this technology or this action, like actually collecting something or so. And whoever is able to do this, they would get like the reward or something. I think that's a very good idea in general. And it also depends a little bit on the willingness of a community to contribute to those funds. I guess on the long term, like there will be some kind of like financial commitment in any zero debris thing. I'm not sure if it's through our DAO, right? Because that depends on our community, what they want. But I think like if we are serious about the zero debris community and its charter, and which is also signed by states and agencies, right? So it's like if they really meant their commitment, then this also needs to be attached to some kind of like investment into it. And I think such a way would be kind of beneficial. The problem there is, of course, always like to be able to participate in such a bounty process or something. Like there may be a lot of projects that would try to develop capabilities and would never like get to that point. But in general, I think like it's a cost-effective way, I guess, to develop those things. Yeah, and there are similar grant, like traditional grant programs, right? That space agencies already use. So like the European Innovation Council is also known for that. They usually also give like funds or grants for the challenges they define. Yeah, I think it's generally a good idea if the actors are in the end also willing to allocate the funding.
Yeah, and so I'm aware of at least one organization that is specializing in collecting existing debris. So I think they have this like they can grab onto a satellite and then deorbit it, but that seems like a relatively expensive method of you kind of you only get to pick up one piece of debris. Maybe they can do multiple. I'm actually not sure, but I'm curious what technologies you've seen that you're excited about that can address the existing debris. So I mean, we've talked about satellite manufacturers, making sure that they create their spacecraft in a way that it's easy for the debris to be removed. But what about the existing debris? And also how much is there, and at what risk are we of the sort of like Gravity, or the movie Gravity scenario, where you get the I forget what it's called, but the exponential destruction of all of these different satellites?
Yeah, so I have been coming across like many creative different ways of collecting space debris in the past year. And like all kind of things, right? From people talking about magnets, which actually perhaps won't work, to nets, like having massive nets that are basically like catching like fish, right? To like robotic arms, I think for most people the most favorite ones, to even like having kind of like I don't know, like a box that opens and I've kind of like measures the speed of debris and then just like collects it, like close it in this box basically. Lots of things from like the most established actors, which is like Astroscale or Clear Space. I think the robotic arm is so far the most approached or developed way, but also I think like there will be an orbit test with Clear Space and an ESA satellite happening quite soon. So I'm really curious to see how that goes because they are already planning this mission for a while, and I think that's quite promising to see. I think also most ADR missions are focused on the larger debris. Because those, like as I mentioned, these like I think 40 something dangerous objects, and they are more like the larger pieces, right? So it makes sense to focus on removing those first and not so much the super small debris, which is nonetheless maybe even more dangerous because you can't really track them right now. But for the collection process right now, it's what some of the companies are focusing on. Like, I mean, everyone has their own focus on this part, but yeah, that's what I've seen. And in terms of like the current numbers of space debris, I think like I should check, I guess, but I think about 54,000 objects between 1 and 10 centimeters in size. And then you have like a couple of like 1 point something million of pieces larger, smaller than 1 centimeter. That means like tiny pieces, right? That maybe even like they are they can still damage a satellite by hitting like a solar part or something, and they can still be dramatic in collisions. But yeah, I think like let me check the numbers because I think I don't want to get anything wrong, but I guess this was roughly the actual things. But also, like for anyone interested in this, like ESA once a year publishes an environmental report, and that always shows like the most accurate numbers. And also, I think they shared sometimes when their assets have been hit by space debris, which yeah, not all space agencies actually do.
Yeah, I'm also curious about the how often that happens today, and whether the rate of those incidences, or I imagine they're going up. I wonder, is there like a critical threshold that maybe we're like moving towards, where if you get past this threshold, it becomes like an untenable problem? Like we're creating more debris than we can clean it up. Do we ever reach an inflection point like that, or how yeah, what's the worst case scenario if we don't do anything?
Yeah, it's hard to say what is a threshold, right? But the worst case scenario in general is called the Kessler syndrome. It's like a cascade of collisions that is basically uncontrollable at some point. And we don't want to experience that. But also we don't know exactly when that point is reached. I guess like there have been reading different positions on that. Some people said that kind of is already pretty close. Others say like we still have like a decade or something. So I'm not sure where on the timeline we are right now. But yeah, in terms of numbers, I just checked. So for 54,000 pieces of space debris are larger than 10 centimeters. So like basically like this or larger.
Wow.
And 1.2 million are like 1 centimeter to 10 centimeters. So also quite, I mean, there is still lots of space in space, but the orbits are kind of congested at some point. And now if you see, like, I don't really look so much just at these numbers of space debris, but I look at the space debris numbers in relation to the launches, right? So we see how much objects we have in space now, we see the launch rates we have right now, and we see the expected, like the projections of launches. And then the numbers get a bit more of a threat. So, and the point there is also there's like a time gap, right? Because the missions that are gonna be launching in the next 5 years or something, they are basically planned right now. So if like there's always a delay between like actually being able to prevent something by having a better design, like a life cycle assessment that can actually reduces the risk, and the launch or the point where the satellite is in space and then you can react, but you can't really prepare anymore. Yeah, and so and the other question was on incidents, right? So I'm not sure about so right now on the number of incidents in space. Also, of course, again, the space data is like you get different information depending on who you ask. After all, so the information sharing is also managed differently in different locations. But what is interesting also is that you have like several occasions already where space debris was hitting Earth, right? So you have uncontrolled re-entries, you have controlled re-entries, because even the space debris at some point needs to go somewhere. And the controlled re-entries usually go in the ocean, which is also not the sustainable solution after all. But it's what's being done. And then we have also had uncontrolled re-entries that have been hitting in Kenya. It has been hitting a house by people who ended up suing NASA for that. You had like a SpaceX tank or something ending up in a Polish backyard somewhere. You know, so like I mean, imagine like it gets kind of weird now that you're like somewhere in the jungle maybe, and like suddenly there's like a piece of a tank coming down from space, literally. So gets quite absurd quite fast. But yeah, that's what we are already dealing with. And again, here it doesn't really matter so much the numbers right now, but it does matter a lot when you look at the projection of the expected launches. And then the last option, which is also kind of a tricky one, is the atmosphere. And that's what I have been concerned a lot about in the past few years, because right now design for demise is like, so design your satellite so that it will fully burn off in the atmosphere is kind of considered the most sustainable solution. It's also kind of what the zero debris community has, well, not really agreed upon, but it's like, it's a kind of a thing that is considered to be part of the solution, and it may be part of the solution, but we don't really know yet what happens to the atmosphere if we burn if you burn thousands of satellites that contain material like aluminium and something in the atmosphere. Also because there's large parts of the atmosphere that we don't really know anything about, because there's not much research being done. Where the airspace, where planes fly, we know a lot. Also like the edge of space, we also know a few things, but there's like still a gap in the atmosphere where we don't really understand what's happening. And we don't really know how they will react if we burn satellites on a very large scale. And those kind of things I find quite concerning, because of course then at some point you may ask like, okay, where do we get rid of it then, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, I guess. Yeah, we're kind of going into uncharted territory with the volume of things that are going into space, and as the cost goes down dramatically, we'll probably it'll probably just continue to get worse. Yeah, I do wonder the same, whether or not this will have an effect on our atmosphere. But yeah, I guess going back to this question of like, so I imagine almost, well, the thing that I'm hearing a lot now is that many different sovereign nations want to have their own constellations. So, for example, like the deal where Elon Musk like shut down Starlink over Ukraine, I think that scared a lot of nations where they want to have their own independent satellite communication network that reproduces the capabilities of Starlink. So I guess what this means is that we'll have like a Starlink constellation per each sovereign nation. So that's a lot of satellites. And I wonder, I mean, so I guess there's two questions. One is like, can we get everyone to use the same hardware? Probably not. I don't think they're going to trust each other. But then, how do you do this sort of diplomacy to make sure that in a war scenario, you know, God forbid, but say in a war scenario, China or whoever, I don't want to pick on China, but let's just say they want to take down the Starlink constellation because it gives them some sort of advantage in war. And then that means that now there's like tons of space debris because they've like taken out all these satellites. And we know that both the US government and the Chinese government are working on that technology to like be able to destroy the other person's satellites. And they may already be doing it for all we know.
Oh, they have. Like, I mean, like the ASAT, not each other, but there was ASAT test, right? So there's still space debris right now from anti-satellite testing where they tested their weapons to destroy satellites successfully, which now means like they are also affected by the debris that is still orbiting from that things. Luckily, those tests have been banned by, and I think by literally every country. I'm not sure if there was an exception right now. But like pretty much widespread adoption of like saying, okay, no, we don't do this anymore, because it's literally very stupid, because like even though the person who's doing this is affected by the space debris that is coming back, apart from any ethical thing that is obviously wrong. But yeah, so I think diplomacy and stuff is like very important. I mean, now anyway, we reach a point of humanity with AI and space capabilities, and like the technology we have right now is incredible. And like the human factor is the most destabilizing thing so far, right? So if we can't get that together, I anyway don't know how to survive modern technology as life on Earth. So we need to figure out that stuff. Actually, to the advantage of like, or to have also like a positive stake on China here. I've been a couple of months ago in Hong Kong on a conference where we had like I think 22 space actors, 22 space nations joining. So it was like quite a small meeting, like I think 50 people or something, but from 22 nations, including Russia, including the US, including China, Hong Kong, obviously, India, a few European people, from South Africa, like lots of diverse space actors. And they were all, it was partly, like mostly about space sustainability. It was talking about, okay, how do we find solutions together for space debris? How do we find solutions and standards together? And I think every nation has an interest in that. And also we always tend to forget that the people are not the government, right? So even, of course, there's limitations what you can do without the government actually working in the right direction. But still, after all, like the people and the companies are the people in the companies. And it comes back to every one of us to decide what to support and what to build and how to use that and how to collaborate and communicate with people. And whether or not you pick the same fights that was presented to you just because, well, you're born here, so that's why you're on that side. So I guess for more and more people, those kind of thinking doesn't really make sense anyway. And I think global communication, and that's also why I believe in DAOs so much, because I think that's a way where people can collaborate from anywhere, like across any culture, across any nation, across anything, without anyone controlling the network, without anyone owning it or being able to interfere with the votings of all this the community. And I think that's why I believe so much in this approach of having decentralized governance or ways to make decisions and develop things together. So yeah, so I hope to see more of this and more of this international collaboration, even like on a very base level, right? Even if it's students, those students will eventually become politicians, will become engineers and corporate leaders. So the earlier you can start actually talking to people outside your own bubble, immediate bubble, I think the better, and the more we can also do for like coordinating efforts to mitigate the risk that we are all facing. And I think especially space is prone to understanding that there is this global community, you know, like the overview effect. Anyone who left Earth and who saw it from space, they all come home and see like, wow, like all life is gathered on this one blue little dot. Like there's nothing else but that we know. And here on Earth, we're so used to that we kind of forget that. We're so blind to the most obvious thing that we pick fights and threaten to destroy each other. And it's kind of competition can be healthy once we understand that, after all, like, this can be a playful competition, but we are sharing all this shared destiny on this shared planet. And especially things like space debris are global problems, and we need to figure out how to like manage global resources and planetary topics. And yeah, so I think that always has to be part of the solution.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's all about the people, and yeah. Yeah, I've heard of efforts of ideas of trying to get leaders of different nations to all go up and see the Earth from space and have this consciousness shift and realize that, oh, we're all just humans, and these borders are just constructs in our mind, and really we're all together, and we should steward the Earth together. I mean, I think that this is like I wish that things were kind of more like that, but yeah, I feel like, especially today now, where things are getting more and more tribal, or we seem to be moving more in the direction of, say, like setting up more tariffs, making going against globalization, and and maybe in some ways, some of the nations that are doing this, their people actually, like, they want this. It's a popular thing. So I wonder too, like, is it the nations, or is it the people? Like, how it's if things get more democratic, especially with these like multi-stakeholder type organizations, where you have people from different parts of the world that have different incentives, or kind of have an us versus them mentality. I mean, I guess what I like about the world of DAOs is that it's usually people that have opted out of that sort of like mindset, or that sort of framework, where they're like, yeah, no, we actually just want to collaborate directly with one another. But I wonder if that sort of like cultural identity piece, which is important, and in some ways it makes it difficult to solve these like global challenges. But I mean, you also don't want to erase people's identity and their. So I mean, that's maybe more philosophical or something. But how do you see that progressing? Is like we become more interconnected via the internet, and maybe we see each other more face to face. And I mean, you're in Germany right now. I'm in the United States, but on this web chat, that doesn't even matter. But yeah, do you think that will solve those problems? Do you think that like we'll have that sort of consciousness shift, or whether or not it, I don't know. I struggle sometimes, because like MoonDAO has also been, we're pretty international. We have people speaking different languages. We've had like a voter bloc from China, and then from the US, and it's not always just kumbaya. It's like, there's different visions for what the organization should be doing and how it should be doing it. And it gets it's not easy at all. So I don't know what that future looks like, but I'm curious what you think.
I mean, for me, that's one of the most fascinating questions anyway, coming from psychology and sociology and peace and conflict research, right? So first of all, I would say, just because something is not easy doesn't mean it's not possible, right? So that's not the same thing. And also in terms of tendency or developments, I never like, if it's crypto or social developments, I'm never really worried about trends, because usually it's not like one linear straight direction for an eternal time. Usually there's dynamics, and often there's also like, the further it goes to one extreme, the further it shifts to the other extreme again. And I think the important thing there is more to learn as a collective to navigate those poles, so that we don't have to go all the way to the one extreme and then all the way to the other extreme, because the next generation is like protesting against it. It's kind of the course of history, and I think it's kind of part of nature in a way. Like, you have different seasons and so on, it's fine. But we kind of need to stop freaking out so much in this sense, like getting violent and so on, right? So it's more about like, how can we learn to disagree in healthy ways, and to have different cultures. And I'm not even like anti-nations or something, right? Like, have the governments, have the multipolar world, like all of this. There is no conflict in that. So I'm extreme anti-extremism, you could say. So in this, So it's really about like finding that balance and finding the common ground. And I think what we especially can do, or like should do more often in those international or multi-organizational context, is to not so much focus on the differences and the values. There is like a lot of freedom in any agreement, anything, any collaboration. There are still ways that this organization or this culture may do things entirely different that doesn't really matter or affect anyone outside of that. But you need, like, between the collaboration, between the actors, some kind of common sense, sometimes of basic agreements that you're working on, that also is the why of the collaboration or the goal of something. And I think like to have like something like as basic as maintaining the atmosphere, or making sure that space debris isn't hurting any person in the end, which is something that is very real possible. Those are kind of like shared goals that are, well, in the interest of everybody. And it's more like finding those things. And then how, the exact how, I think it's very important that then the how isn't so much opposed on the single actors, which is what we have seen failing the UN with a bit, right? So the UN is pretty much like you have to wear a suit and you have to speak English and you have to look and behave a certain way. So if you're indigenous, like, and now we're beginning to integrate those cultural diversity more. But it's like, then it's not a collaboration anymore. Then it's kind of like a dictatorship of a culture that is saying, hey, I'm facilitating this, and if you want to be part of that, you have to like fit in this. And that's not really how you can really bring everyone together. So yeah, in this kind, to make it short, I would say always like there's a balance that has to be found, and it's usually found where there's some kind of common ground or some kind of common goals. And even if it's just one thing you can agree upon, then focus on that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I like space so much, is because it does get us to sort of raise our awareness in some way of like, oh, actually we're on a planet, and when you think of it that way, we're just humans on the planet, and kind of like a lot of these conflicts look a lot smaller, they look a lot pettier in comparison to the grand scale of the universe and our place in it. And so I totally agree. I think that we just need to find more of these types of missions, these types of things that people from different cultures can agree on. Like I think the idea of picking up after yourself transcends pretty much every culture. It's not unique to anyone group, and so I think everyone would like to abide by some basic protocols of hey, we'll clean up after ourselves and make sure that we don't have this mutually assured destruction scenario where we have the Kessler syndrome and all these satellites now become a blockade from our access to space. So I mean, at MoonDAO we have a bunch of enthusiasts, people from different parts of the world that care about these things. How can they get involved in Space Debris DAO? What's the best way for them to hop into your communication channels? What do you use, I guess, to communicate? How do people get involved?
Yeah, sure. So we are soon launching memberships. So right now we are having a wait list that people can join or to sign up for the memberships. So the DAO in our case isn't built yet, right? So we are just in the process of building it, to just approve the milestones approved by the business incubator of ESA. So we're just starting out building the DAO. We've been doing community building most of the time, and that mostly through LinkedIn so far. So if you're on LinkedIn, feel free to just add me. Isabelle Mierau is there. That's my full name. In general, we also have Space Debris DAO accounts on LinkedIn. I just created one on X. We haven't been using it, but I figured at some point X is kind of like important if you are working in the crypto space. So I'm happy to connect there as well. We do have a very traditional like WhatsApp group for the core team if anyone is interested in joining that. But we are also going to open another communication channel for anyone who maybe not wants to contribute in the core team, but maybe wants to take over certain parts, just to a certain task, or just want to follow along or just wants to join our meetings or use our platform. We are also hosting online events, also with one from your people, right, from Damon. That is happening on the 14th of August. So any news on that I will share on my channels. So yeah, best is on LinkedIn. If you can follow me or the Space Debris DAO, you will find any updates. We also have a LinkedIn group. Yeah, or Instagram is more, yeah, I guess X or LinkedIn would be the best channel so far.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll find those links and we'll post them along with the video so people can follow you and follow Space Debris DAO on LinkedIn and X. Amazing. Yeah. And I guess I also just want to commend you because, working in the crypto industry and then interfacing with any sort of organization like ESA that has, I don't want to say a traditional mindset, but, DAOs are very new. So they have to work with new technology and understand its risks, understand how it works. So that's really important work. And, I commend you for kind of, being the spearhead, I suppose, via ESA to introduce them to the technology of DAOs and to help them wrap their heads around this and see how they can use it. That's really exciting, and it's awesome that you have their support.
Yeah, thanks very much. We're also very happy to have been part of the community and also not part of the business incubator. I mean, after all, like space agencies are not that far from new technologies, so it's just a different new technology.
Right. Yeah, and that's also been really cool. Is that I wouldn't have ever expected it, but yeah, out of different parts of the government, I feel like the space agencies are always the most like tech forward, so they've been the most open to something like DAOs. So it's really cool to see like that happening. So yeah, it's exciting, and yeah, keep us updated on all the progress. And yeah, excited to hear Iman speak at, and you said when is August, mid-August?
August 14th, yeah.
14th.
So 6, I think, like we will announce the exact time, but it would be like, I think 11 a.m. your time, like American time zone, and around 6 p.m. in Central European time.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure to share those links also with the community, and yeah, we'll join you there. Great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking. I'll hand
sure.
over to...
Just be one last thing. If anyone is coming to Burning Man, we are also hosting this year a space debris workshop at Burning Man at Camp Decentral, which is a blockchain camp also. So if anyone is there, you can find it in the program. It's called Houston. We have a space junk problem. And yeah, so happy to connect also with anyone who is going there.
Awesome. Yeah, I know some people that are going, so I'll definitely let them know. Awesome.
Great. Then thank you so much for having me, and have a great day.
Great. Okay. I'll hand it over to Ryan. Thank you, Bella. Bye.
of the overall project. So we will be in Rio de Janeiro from September 6 to September 9, and we are talking there to the planetarium, to hospital, and to university. And also we're planning, hopefully we can make it. So I found a few more great connections there, and there are a big Brazilian artist who's doing murals, like huge graffitis in favelas or in other parts of Rio to emphasize important social issues that they have. And when he heard about our project, he got so excited, and so he offered to do the giant mural on Unity MoonDAO, and I think it will be so cool. So we'll discuss it more in detail next week. So we'll have a call with them, and then we will travel to Natal, where Julio will meet us, and we will give a talk there and visit a few hospitals. And also we will spend one night at the Habitat Marte. So yeah, we'll be one night Martians. So it will be great. And after that, we are thinking to go to Iguazu because they will have the big event, breaks and technological conference. So my partners in Unity are in contact with the director of this event. And I think later on we will for sure say if it's confirmed. If not Iguazu, then we will go to Brasilia, where Brazilian Space Agency, and Julia has connections there also. But yeah, it's getting. I mean, the schedule is really will be packed, and it's so many great activities. So yeah, we're working on finalizing just the dates, the time, and places where we would go. Yeah, and I guess I will just text you, like asking for instructions, right? How to use all of that. So yeah. Oh, and also we are talking to the one of the hospitals if Ayman can give a talk not as an astronaut but actually as a the oncologist to the doctors. I think they really got also very excited. So we did talk with Ayman about that. So um, we'll keep updated. But Ayman hopefully locked his dates for us. Yeah, nice. And yeah, and hopefully you guys will tell me soon who's coming from MoonDAO.
Yes, it is like the busiest day because it's the last day. I had some slowness getting back from vacation and managing it, so I have committed to anyone that gets me their address today as the deadline to help them. I got to cut it off somehow, but today is the deadline for accepting applications, and I have defined that to mean you give me your address because it takes a minute. Thanks though to Colin Name.get for helping me today to sort out some of the addresses. So, but where are we at? Like 9, 10 people, plus I'm talking to a couple people on the side right now today. So we should have 12 or so if everyone actually applies. I've taken some phone calls already today to help some people, so that's why you've seen some names coming through through on the citizenship side. So we're in the home stretch. Big thanks to Iman and Titan for reviewing all the applications. They've actually reviewed 100% of them, and they were even reviewing the ones that I hadn't gotten to while I was on vacation. So big thanks to you guys for serving on the committee. as I mentioned, once we have the top 10 finalists selected, then in a couple weeks we will come back and have them all present. My thought is that I'll give each of them the floor for about 2 minutes just to say who they are, and then I will also need to work with the executive board to set up a I guess percentile vote on that day so that we can select the top 3 candidates. Because as the proposal states, the top 3 candidates get an additional bump in money. I think the top one is 5,000, which would be enough to cover the majority of the costs for the most expensive habitat for any of the astronauts. And then the second prize is 2,500, and then the third prize is 1,000, and all the finalists get something $500. So pretty excited. Hopefully, I'm most excited that we have more than 10 applicants, or we will have more than 10 applicants by the time I get all of this sorted out. So all of the money will go to support participation in analog missions. So very excited about that, and I'll have more information once I sort through all the applications and we have the final selected about when that will come up. So I guess Ryan, I will work with you offline. I've seen the schedule, but looks like maybe mid-August is probably the right time to set something up. So I'll send you a direct message about that later. So yeah, super excited. Very excited to support this group of people. So that's all I got.
I have a
yeah.
question. So
Yes.
this is for the big word analog, right? For people who
Yes,
doesn't
that
have
is.
money to. Yeah,
That
it
is
just a few
correct.
days ago, my there was a really talented boy that I met in Uzbekistan a few years ago, and he is striving to work in the space industry. So he said that he got into Lunaris for part of the team, but he
Sure.
doesn't have enough funding for everything. So he was asking me how and where he can get some help. So can he apply for this program?
If he reaches out to me today.
Okay. Can you write me your email or somewhere in
Yeah, I'll
the
send
personal
you
message?
you a Discord message. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to artificially say no, you can't. But I've told everybody in the Discord that today is the deadline. In the WhatsApp group that we have. So, but I'm happy to work with him. And like I said, as long as we get Ethereum proof of Ethereum address today, then we can sort everything out. Sure. The 20. You mean sorry, August. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I see. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, so a few updates with the EB. So actually just this morning, we completed the LP pool deployment with the new fee hooks. So that's deployed on Arbitrum and on mainnet. We have yet to deploy it on Base, but that will come next. And so yeah, soon you'll see an announcement where essentially the fees from those pools can be claimed by vMooney holders. So that'll be exciting. And yeah, that should be live. I'm hoping in the next 1 or 2 weeks. But we'll see. The UI is already there, so we just need to test it out and make sure it works, and we'll send an update once vMooney holders can start claiming rewards. So that's great. And the other main thread has been on the launchpad. So still kind of moving forward with some of these initiatives. each of them kind of has their own different like hurdles that we're working through right now. But hopefully we'll have we're essentially ready with the Launchpad in terms of our technology, and kind of thoroughly tested a lot of the different components. Probably the next big step will be we're going to do an internal MoonDAO Launchpad initiative, just kind of as a test. So to get feedback from the community, and it won't be anything like crazy. We'll basically just have like a test launch, and then we'll see how that goes, and collect a bunch of information, make sure everything works as intended, see if the interfaces and the UI and the way we're communicating different aspects of it make sense to people. So that'll be exciting, and then from there we're basically good to move forward with other initiatives. So that'll be exciting. So I guess stay tuned for those updates. Two pretty big threads that have been ongoing for a while. One, the vMooney reward fee hook stuff with the LP pools and the Launchpad, and soon we'll have something live that people can mess around with, and hopefully either it works or it'll break, and then we'll fix it, and then we'll get better and better. So yeah, excited.
Welcome to MoonDAO, a revolutionary governance model and mission-oriented community that's reshaping collaboration in the space industry. Our mission is to create a self-sustaining, self-governing settlement on the Moon to act as a launch point into the cosmos. MoonDAO is governed like a nation, with its own economy, constitution, voting system, treasury, elections, and senate, but internet native, and so without the limitations of geography. In 2022, we sent our first member to space, showcasing our model's capacity for real-world impact. Now, we're implementing key solutions for global collaboration in the space industry. We offer a borderless, permissionless platform that enables everyday people to participate in the future of space development and exploration. Be part of our lunar legacy and join the MoonDAO movement today.